So in this webinar, we are going to talk about reaching your constituents, contacts, members, prospective donors, and event attendees, so on, what have you, using public pages. So the public pages feature is just one of three options to get donation pages, event registration, and membership online. The other two options are the widget for donations and WordPress plugins. So if you have any interest in either of those two features, you can email support@fundly.com for more information, or implementation@fundly.com in regards to WordPress plugins pricing and how to get those installed. But for today, we're going to talk about public pages. So the public pages feature is basically a built-in web page that you create and manage from within your CRM. So we have a couple of components that we'll need for this. The first is that you'll need to turn on your public pages. So you'll do that by going to your account menu, account, and because I'm in a support credentials, I won't actually have it. So you go to account, my account, and account information, and you'll see the option to activate or deactivate your public pages. If it says activate, that means you'll need to activate it. If it says deactivate, it is already active, and you will see the pages option in your main menu. So that'll be step number one, turn on your pages. Step number two is that in order to take donations online, we need a credit card processor set up for your account. To do this, you'll go to the main menu, Payment Gateway Settings, and you'll see a screen with two buttons. One will say Sign Up for Bluefin, the other will say Sign Up for Stripe. So these are the two credit card processors that we work with. They have slightly different rates and terms and capabilities. At the time of this webinar, let me see my public key. At the time of this webinar, Bluefin's rate was 2.99% per transaction. That's it. And Stripe was 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. If you sign up with Bluefin and you want to process American Express, please make sure to contact them and let them know. That is not on by default. And Stripe does have some extra international options you may be interested in. So, depending on the nature of your transactions, one may be better than the other. If you do mostly smaller transactions, Bluefin may be better. Small transaction being a general term, kind of a nebulous term, depending on how many transactions you get. But most of the nonprofits I've been working with so far, that's been a good rate for them. If you're a nonprofit that does work with large donations, we're talking thousands to tens of thousands, you may consider Stripe, as it can save you a little bit on that percentage fee. So you'll make sure to sign up for your payment processor, whichever one you go for, and then once completed, you'll now be able to process transactions both through the system, so if you use the credit card option when entering a donation on the back end here, and on public pages. All right, so with that set aside, let's talk about actually using public pages once you have it active. So now that we have our public pages on, we can go to the pages option and start configuring it. Now, there's four main components, five if you want to think about it that way, five components to public pages. There's the actual look and feel of it, which is going to be our configure look and feel. There's our fundraising pages, event pages, membership, and a variety of configuration options, which I also have include the log, which is very important for helping support your contacts. So up here at the top, we have the base URL for our public pages. I'm going to go ahead and load that up so you can see what that looks like. And currently, this is what our public pages look like, and we're actually in the editor mode. This is the same URL I would potentially provide to my users. It's just presented to me in the edit mode because I'm currently logged in as an admin. Often a point of confusion. So if I load this up and I'm logged in, I'll get the editor mode. Otherwise, I can click on Configure Look and Feel. Let's close that one out again. And it will also bring up the same page for editing. So let's talk about configuring the look and feel of our site before we start putting in content. So ideally, we'd probably want our public site to look similar to our actual website, or at least as close as possible. To do this, we have a couple of options. The first of them is we can select a template. So we have at this time of this recording 2 templates to choose from. If you ever have this idea for a template, go ahead and send it to us, support@fundly.com, perhaps with a screenshot of a site that you like, or with a nice clear description of the page's layout. Because we are more than interested to see what others may want implemented. So we have 2 layouts currently to pick from. I've picked the one here on the right. It's nothing too fancy. If, for example, I go and look at my event calendar, I can get a slightly better sense of what this is going to look like, as my event calendar will have a bit of content filled in. So, for example, here's my event calendar. So once you pick your layout, your next option will be to modify the colors. So we go from templates to configure. And from here, I can change the header section. So here I've hidden my logo, but I could bring it back. And I can change my logo. So I can click on this and remove or upload a new logo. So I'm going to cancel that. I can modify the banner image. Currently I do not have one, but the banner image is here at the top. I can upload a header background image, which would show behind the banner. And I can set the centering and repeat options for those images. Then we have the body. This is where I can modify the various shades and colors used on the site. So we have shade 1, which is basically the menu bar here. Shade 2, this green, which is used in buttons and a few other places. We have this kind of darker shade. It's used when you're on a page. It's what happens when you mouse over, and it's used in a couple of other items. And then my background color, white. Or I can use a background image. So if you have a background image used on your site, you can implement that as well. And then as before, centering and repeat options. Repeat options for a background is basically how the background is going to behave if it is not big enough for the entire page. This is what's going to happen in most cases. Usually with a background image, you're not going to be able to get an image that fully fills the screen, especially since different screens will be at different resolutions. So what might fit nice and snugly on your page may not fit on a higher resolution monitor, or might be cut off on a lower resolution monitor. So in my case, I've got a pretty good resolution, so I actually tend to end up with a lot of extra space from images. So sometimes you might want to just get an image that fits a portion of the screen and then set it for repeating tile. And if it's an image that nicely butts up against itself, you can actually get a sense that it's one solid image. So a little bit of layout suggestion for you there. And then footer, same idea as the header. Here in my case, someone put in a nice colorful footer down here and set it up. So that is the majority of configure look and feel. When you're selecting your colors, we do have a color picker, or if you have the hex code for the color, which usually you can get from your webmaster or web developer or whoever's managing your website, you can also just paste that in. Usually a 6-digit starting with a pound sign. So you can just paste that in and no need to use the color picker, and you'll be more precise. You can also find these numbers online in case you don't have the particular color you know that it's going to be. And then if you've got your colors in like Pantone, there are converters you can find online, just things I've come across. From there, we have the menu. So that's the only other piece we're going to configure here. Everything else is actually configured either automatically for you or elsewhere. So we notice here we have a number of menu items. We have an About Us page, an event calendar, which we're on currently, a Clay workshop item, a membership item with 2 drop-downs, and a Donate Now item with a couple of items. So some of these are automatic. So let's talk about them all as we configure our menu. So here we have our menu configuration page, and let's go through the various options. So we have an About Us page. This is type text page. So when I add a menu item, I can select its name, the page title, which is mostly for your text pages, and the item type. So text page is exactly what it says it is. If I edit this text page, which I'll do in a little bit actually, I'm going to actually be adding text to our website. So this is basically just a good old-fashioned web page. It has no built-in functionality. You're going to provide the content. We'll see that in a little bit. Some of our other menu items are the event calendar. When you turn on events for Republic pages, this item will get added for you automatically. So there's very little configuration, if any at all, that needs to be done here. This item cannot be removed, as you can remove a text page. So it's going to come with the system. I can, however, add submenus to this if I wanted to for maybe particular events that I'm trying to feature, in which case that brings us to our next item, this Clay Workshop. This would have been better probably as a submenu item, but maybe it's a very specific and featured item. And this is using what is called external URL. Now, external URL is slightly a misnomer because it can actually be an internal URL. I can, if I pull the URL for a particular event, as we see here, generated from my public pages URL, link to that page specifically. Or alternatively, I could link to, say, my main website, and I recommend that. Create a menu item, usually the last one, that says something like home or back to main site, and we'll redirect the user back to your main website. This allowing them to go to your public pages and back from it. So I always want that two-way channel. So that's external URL. Here we're using it to direct to an internal URL, but could also be used for directing back to our main website or to another organization if that made sense to do. Membership. This is similar to events. If we turn on the membership page for our public pages, it will create this membership item for us and act like events. And we'll talk about events and membership in a few minutes. And then Donate Now is similar to these. We will be configuring these elsewhere, and we'll be adding the menu items for us. So donations, events, membership, these are actually handled for us by the system. We just have to tell the system that we want it, or in this case, it'll add it for us. If you want a submenu item, as we did with membership, we can go and find our menu item that we want submenus for, and click the Add Submenu Item, and put the menu name, page title, which is going to show at the top of that page, and menu item type, most likely text page or membership directory. We'll talk about that when we get to membership. So let's go ahead and look at our text page, and then we'll move into the other menu items which we can configure elsewhere. So we're going to close out, and let's look at our About Us page. So we're going to click on our About Us page. We're going to find, I believe it should be empty, but it may have some content. So here we have our About Us page. There's not much on it. And while I'm on this page in the editor, I can click on the Edit button, and I'll get an editor window that will allow me to modify the content. It's nothing too elaborate, but it gives you all the basic editing options you'd need to provide text on a web page. So you can use this for About Us pages. If you had information about maybe a specific event, you could put that online, or any other pertinent information, maybe instructions in case you want to help your users use the site. It's not too complicated, but sometimes certain demographics need a little extra help, or you just want to provide an extra resource. So use it as you want, and then save. So that is the end of Configure Look and Feel. And if there's no questions, we will move on to donation pages. So we're going to go back to pages. You can also use the menu up here. So now I'm back on my Pages dashboard. So when you first activate Pages, all these green indicators will be red. And this is how we can tell the system which features we plan to use. If all you want is donation pages, that is all you need to activate. Once you activate it, it will turn green. Just click on the button. In my case, I have all three active. So let's start with fundraising pages. Now this is going to take us a little bit into actually donation configuration. So one thing we might want to remember from donation configuration is there's two pieces that will come into play here. One is funds. Actually, there's a couple more pieces, but there's funds. As we may recall, a fund is what the donation is, and it means to organize your donations by how we will process them, and the donation acknowledgement letter they'll get, and other internal processes. So general donations, event sponsorship, scholarship fund, things like that. So when we're creating our donation pages, so let's go to configure, we're going to need to have funds that we can record donations against. So we're going to be linking these funds to our donation pages. So that's one component we'll need set up beforehand. Two, you're going to need to have your, at the very least, your general acknowledgement settings set up. So there's that. Further, if you plan to use programs or campaigns for your donation pages, we're going to need to have those set up. So a program is what is the donation for, what is it earmarked for, and a campaign is a specific fundraising effort. So if you're doing a fundraising drive directing them to a specific page, you may wish to link that page to a campaign. And then lastly, there is a piece that we don't tend to cover in configuration too directly called ask arrays. And those are going to be the actual giving options that we use online. So we're going to revisit ask arrays and funds as we go along here, but let's go ahead and focus on creating the page, and then we'll talk about funds and ask arrays. So here I have a number of giving pages that have been previously created for various testing or demonstration purposes. So for example, here I have one that's called art supplies. I have a event sponsorship page, and so on. So let's go ahead and create a general fundraising page, because most of these are what you'd consider program specific. So let's add new, and then we'll talk about these button items here. So add new fundraising page will allow you to create a new page. We are going to give this page a title. So since this is a general page, let's call it the Donate Now page. And then we'll talk about how these pages go into the menu item. So Donate Now. Be very dramatic now, but let's just do now. Next, the menu item name. So this is what it's going to be displayed as on the public site. Since this is going to be a general fundraising page, this actually doesn't matter for our purposes. It's already going to say Donate Now. It's going to be that first menu item, Donate Now. Otherwise, it'll show up as part of the drop-down in the order we specify. So right now it's item number 5. If I make this the general page, this won't matter. It's item number 1 now. And you'll get a little bit of an explanation of what this does. So it's a general donation page. So it's the first menu item now. Next, I forgot to mention it, source of donation. The system will come with a handful of sources. Sources is how the donation got to you. The system will come with online. That is the recommended one. However, if you're making use of other giving options, such as the widgets, you may wish to designate pages versus widget versus general online. So you may have other data, you may have other sources of donation. In this case, I do not have any other that would be applicable, so I'm going to use online. So we're going to be able to report now that these donations came from online, or from pages, or from the widget, if you were using that. Next, we use that fund I mentioned. So now we're telling the system, right, when I record this donation, what fund am I recording against? And assuming I'm not using the general, the fund has a letter attached to it, what letter am I going to use for donation acknowledgement? So here, let's go ahead, and I should have a general funds fund to record against. This is also where we're going to get our giving options with our ask array. So we're going to retouch on this one, but this is an important piece that a lot of folk miss. When we assign the fund to the donation page, this is where our giving options will come from. So when I preview this page, which I can't yet, the giving options I'll see on the right are drawn from the ask array attached to this fund. So we'll see that in a bit. If this fund or this page were for a specific giving campaign, I can go ahead and select that campaign. And so when we configure a campaign, one of the options we have is to create goals for that campaign. So we can say, right, this is the annual appeal 2016, because it's 2016 now. And our goal for this campaign for this time period is $50,000. Well, the fun thing about those campaigns is when I select a campaign, so construction drive, if it's got goals attached to it, I can select those goals and they will be displayed online with the page, and a ticker will exist to track the donations that came in through that page, so not offline, only on the online donations for that page, and it will show that progress against the goal. So you can say my goal for this campaign is $5,000 online, use that for the page, and you can, as people donate online, you'll see, hey, I've got $2,000 of my 5,000. People can see the progress. Bit of fundraising recommendation. An old manager of mine called it salting the kitty. I'm not quite sure where she got the term. I think it had to do with the donation cap thingies. Anyway, and that is basically to put a little bit money of your own in there. So, fun fact of social psychology, people will do what other people do, good old bandwagon psychology. So if someone sees there's already donations on a page, they will be more inclined to donate to it. So you may wish to, for a campaign, have some staff, or if you have a donor already set aside, have them immediately come and make a donation to show that there's already some progress made on this, and it will help encourage people to help support it. So that's just a little fundraising advice for you. So let's cancel this. I'm not going to do a campaign at this time. So source, fund, optional campaign. And then if we want to, we wouldn't do this for a general page, but we can lock this page to a specific program. So we can say, right, this is the arts classes program, and we can lock it to that program. So all the money that comes into this records against that program, or the scholarship program, or no program at all. Or we can also let the donor select. So for a general page, this might be an option. We're going to allow them to select the program and the subprogram so that they can earmark their donation if they want. Otherwise, it's a totally general, unrestricted donation. So when you're selecting your subprogram, you need to have already selected a program, however. So scholarship program doesn't have any subprograms, excuse me. Exhibition should have, 3 that I can choose from, so I can lock it in. But I'm going to go ahead and give it to the user. And then as I checked before, this is the general fundraising page. It is going to be the Donate Now button on my public site. So once we have all these configurations done, officially we are done. But I'm going to say that we shouldn't be, we are unofficially not done, because we want to make this page as appealing as possible. So once we have the technical details in, we're going to save and proceed, and we're going to put the details in. So these details are going to be what drives the donor to donate to this page. So details is what the donor is going to see when they click on the donation page. This is basically where, if you're doing a program specific page, you talk about that program. This is the scholarship program. It provides money for art classes for children. This is why people have donated in the past. Here's some quotes from the kids who have gotten help from it. So this is where you get to tell your story, and I strongly recommend tell a good story. Humans like stories. We love storytelling, and stories jive very well with our brains, and our emotions. So this is where you're going to get the opportunity to tell your donors what the program's about, or what the donation would be about, why it matters, why they should donate, how it has made a difference in the past, and how it's going to make a difference in the future. So those last two are actually very important. What's the difference going to be made, and reassure them that a difference will be made. So make sure you put that in there. And then donation description, bit of a misnomer, will show on the final donation step. I sometimes consider it more of a thank you, but it's basically the last word you're going to get in regarding this donation. So this is sometimes where people will put a little bit of instruction if there's specific steps they want the donor to take. This is where you can be, the last minute, thank you for what you're about to do. So let's put a little detail in here. Some awesome details, just so we can see where that's going to show. And let's put just the words thank you. And let's not hold down the shift key longer than we need to. There we go. there's that. Save and proceed. And the editor, we saw that is a bit more robust than the editor we had previously, but everything you need. Save and proceed. And then last, definitely not least, media. Pictures worth 1,000 words, as they say. This is where you can put pictures of the children being assisted. Images from your organization as a whole for a general page. If this is an event sponsorship, pictures from the event from last year, so on and so forth. So this is where we're going to be able to really tie in visually with people and tie them into our organization and what we're trying to get them to donate for. So pictures as well as YouTube URLs. And it'll actually put an image online. So I'm not going to use this right now. And let's go ahead and publish our page. Now it's available online, and let's preview it. So now we're going to see our page. And I'm in admin mode, so I'm going to get the admin version of it. That's why I still have my editors, but this is effectively what a user will see. So here is our donation page. So here's our details, the ability for them to share this page on their social media. Sometimes a question about that. This is their social media share, so I can share it to my Facebook as a donor. Some other fundraising pages, so we can help them find other pages, and our donation options. So this is the Ask Array I mentioned earlier, and we're going to set one up in a minute. And we have one-time and monthly recurring donations at this time. I can click donate, and I'm going to get our donation page. So this is where they get to put in their information. Here's our description, so kind of a last minute what you're going to say, and card information, donate now, finish out. Now, there's this login option. We're going to talk more about that later, but it is not required for donors. So a donor can log in, and thus they can actually see their donations and what have you. It'll remember their information. If they have a card on file, it'll pull that up, but it is not required for donations. Okay, so the question about showing the largest donation option first, we will see that when we set up our Ask Arrays. So we're going to completely control what this looks like and in the order and all that. So we'll see that in just a few minutes. Good question. So that is the creation of a donation page. And let's actually go ahead and leave this up for now. We're going to come back to it so we can see our changes. So once we're done, we can go back. Oops, let's actually go all the way back. So back. Okay, and get back to our fundraising page list. So a couple items here before we look at the donation configurations we need for pages, and then we'll wrap up with the events and membership. There's not much there, so we'll be fine on time. So here's our donate now. I can edit it. Here is the URL. I can delete it. Delete is delete, permanent. It's green, so it's published. I can unpublish it from here, and I can preview it. This URL, as mentioned earlier, is fixed. So if I copy this and link to it from my website, unless I delete that page, it will always be valid. Same thing is going to be true for our events and our memberships. So keep that in mind. Just go to the page in your editor, grab it, use it as needed. Ignore the fact that you're in the editor. You only see that because you're logged in. So if you do want to truly test your site, log out and then load up the page, or open it up in a completely different browser or something like that. You just have to make sure you're not logged in. I use Chrome for my demonstration purposes, but I also use Firefox, so I tend to have them both open, and I tend to flip back and forth depending on what I'm working on. So that's a great little trick for seeing your changes as the user would see it. Okay, so let's see if that open. And yeah, so that's how we create our fundraising pages. So let's get out of pages for just a minute, and let's look at configurations. So we're going to go to configurations, and as a reminder, we're not going to actually configure for funds, programs, or campaigns, so gift sources, but we will just a reminder where they are. So configuration, fundraising, we have gift sources, programs, campaigns, funds, and Ask Arrays. So we're just going to look at a fund configuration really quickly. So when we want to use a fund online, we're going to go to Funds, and we have our list of funds. We can create a new fund. Let's just edit one. General funds is the one we're using. Edit. And all we really need is a name and a code. But for online purposes, we also need to attach an ask array. And this ask array we're going to configure in just a moment. So from here, we just go ahead and select an ask array we've previously configured. If we have not configured one, we can add new here, configure it, then come back, or I can edit one that I've already configured. So I'm actually going to go to the ask array section though. So there we go, let's do that. So, and then save when I'm done. But so let's go to ask array. So I'm using this highest array. So ask arrays, and here we have a list of all the ask arrays in my system. I have many of them, quite a few. I can only have one ask array assigned per fund. So if I'm using a fund for different pages, I can't have different ask arrays on those different pages. So keep that in mind. But I can have as many ask arrays and as many funds as I want, and as many pages as I want. So if I need different ask arrays, I will need different funds for those different pages, depending on how just make sure it makes sense for your organization. Don't get too carried away, because sometimes it can actually reduce reportability if you have too many funds. But whatever makes sense for your organization. So let's create a new fund, new ask array, add new ask array. Most of what we have on this page we can ignore. Ask arrays are used in one other part of the system called appeals. It is a very robust piece of the system for sending appeals, i.e. campaigns, mailings, and stuff like that. We aren't covering it today, but it is a very cool piece, and ask arrays are used there, and so most of the features here are used there. So the only two things we really need to worry about here are the code for the ask array. Sometimes people match it to the fund and not required. It just has to be unique for against all the other ask arrays, and a description. I like it to be kind of based on how the ask array works or what it might be used for. So if this is going to be used for my sponsorship page, I might name it sponsorship array. If I am using it for my general page, I might call it general, whatever makes sense to you. So code, name, and what it's going to be used for. These, acquisition is only used for appeals. You can set it as a default. Like I said, mostly ignore these. Save and proceed. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up one I've already created. Let's use that highest because we're already using it. So highest array. Edit. So I set various things here. Save and proceed. Ask array details. This is the bulk of it. There are a variety of things we can do here. We're going to keep it simple. So I'm going to say it outright. Ignore everything over here. This is some more advanced functionality you use in appeals. We can ignore it entirely. So don't do anything with your ranges. All you need to do is worry about your ask details. And so you might be noticing that these ask details, though looking very complicated, have values that match what I put on my public site. So we have three options for an ask array detail. Mine here is particularly complicated setup. We can simplify it. The first one, when I add a new option, is text. This is our option for our other. So my option down here that just says other, basically a set your own amount, is a text. I mark it as text, give it a description, set your own amount, other, your choice, whatever you want to call it, and that's all I need to do. It'll give them a text field, they'll put in their value. The next one is fixed. This is the one that you're probably going to use. This is exactly what you think it is. I just set it to a value. I can just say it is $20. So if I save this right now, we will now find that when I refresh this page, I will now have a new option under other called $20. You wouldn't normally set it up that way, but you can. Usually you want your other at the top or the bottom. Varies by your preference. So here we have that $20 I just created. So nothing too fancy there. That's mostly what you're going to probably do. You'll create your other and then set your values. The order in which they appear here is the order in which they appear on the site. So if you want your highest value first, you will put that one over here in the top left, and then descending left to right and down. Wherever you put your other will be where it is in relation. So if I want your other first, it needs to be first. If you want it last, you put it last. Nothing too fancy there. So just set your other. I usually like it first, but sometimes I like it. You see people use it last, or your highest amount or your lowest amount, and set it up however you want. Bit of psychology for us all. Social psychology, my favorite subject, is people. It's from a study have been found that they will more often donate to the second highest value. So I recommend that you make sure to have about 5 options. There's a reason for this. If you have 3, then they're picking the middle. It's always going to be the middle. And we probably want to push them up a little bit if we can. So I like 5. It gives a nice spread, but not too much. So depending on what you consider like the average donation of your donors, you'll have that in reports and stuff. You'll set your options so that number 3 is probably your average, and then 4 is a little above that, and 5 is above that. So if your average donation is 100, your ask array may be 25, 50, 100, 250, 500. That's a good spread, usually kind of a double. But I have seen 10, 20, 50, 100, and then like 250. Kind of spread it out in that way. So it's up to you what you want to do, but just keep that in mind that part of the goal of this ask array is to push your donations and your donors a little higher than what you're currently getting. So I suggest 5 fixed values and another, and put your averages through number 3, and then push up, and then have some lower options just in case. So there's one more option on here. I'm going to talk about it very briefly, and it's this calculated one. Now this is a really powerful option. I have mine set up, but you don't need to use it. I mentioned earlier that a user can be logged in. And if they're logged in, we have access to their giving history. You can actually see we have access to those statistics in their giving summary on the left side of their contact record. And we can calculate our suggested value based on those statistics. So let me take this one out. So I can set my function to calculated. And I can say, right, I'm going to do a little bit of math based on some statistic in their record. So in this case, I'm using the highest amount, the highest donation they've ever given. I'm multiplying it by 1.5, rounding up to the nearest $5, asking for a minimum of $20. So if my highest donation is 100, this would ask me for 150. If you have no history for me, or my average donation is quite low, like $1, minimum ask is going to set the minimum or the default. So if I have no history, it's going to default to 20. So this is a way where I can turn a calculated into a fixed should I have no history. Powerful option. You may not use it, but it's a fun piece there. This gift provides, by the way, probably won't use it, but if you want a little bit of text saying, $20 will get you 4 meals for some, if you're doing a poverty prevention campaign or something like that, or 20 books, or 3 classes for a child. So that's where you can use this gift provides to add a little bit of text, and that's this text right here. All right, so that's ask arrays. Once you have yours configured, probably using an other and fixed, go ahead and save it. Can edit your fund and attach it to the fund, and then select the fund for the donation page. And now you have a donation page with your own customized giving options and descriptions and text and images and video for your liking and your needs. All right, so that's actually the major component of public pages. The rest of it is actually pulled from configurations you've already made. So when I activate, let's get back to the Pages dashboard. When I activate events, there is no configuration I need to do to put those events online from public pages itself. So unlike our donation pages, which we have a high level of configuration for, events will simply pull from your configured events. So you may notice that if I click on event pages, nothing happens. All you have to do is turn it on. And you'll configure your events from your events list as normal, covered in a different webinar. And you'll just need to make sure that you publish the event. So I'm going to briefly go through the 3 pieces, 2 pieces, the pieces of an event that will impact the public site. So let's edit the leatherworking workshop with me. Piece number 1, everything on this page. Title, that's what goes online. Venue will actually let you specify the venue, show a map online. Host, this is another organization that might be running the event or partnered with you, and you can put their information. Description, this is the event page itself. Okay. Then under registration types, these will all show online, allowing someone to register. If you do not wish for it to be online, do not display on public site. This registration option will not be shown online. This is good for complimentary tickets that are handed out for free, for example, and all the other tickets are paid. Volunteers, if you have sponsors and they get free tickets with their sponsorship, reminder, sponsorship is a donation, not a ticket type, so you would want to take a donation page for that. You might make that do not display on public site. And then lastly, whether or not the entire event even shows online. Makes this event available for registration through public site. This will be automatically turned on. Publish it now will be set, and it will go instantly online. Or publish it on a specific date or time before, or don't publish it at all. And now your event, however you configured it, will be available in your event calendar. And if I go to my event calendar and I go to a specific page, the event calendar URL and that specific page's URL will be constant. So I can use it in newsletters and other publications. I can make submenu items or menu items that link directly to it if it's a kind of a featured event, and you just have to go to the page and pull it up. If it's in the future, you may have to go to that month. Sometimes it's a question that comes up, where's my event? If it's in March, we're not in March yet, so just go to March. One thing I do want to mention about events. So actually, let's talk about fees. I forgot to mention fees. Donation pages have the 2.99 or 2.9 or whatever fee for your credit card processor. We ourselves take 1%. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. For events, for paid tickets, we take $1 in addition to the credit card fees. One thing you may have noticed in the events, you may notice when you're working on an event and editing registration types is you can dictate to the system how that fee is handled. Now I talk about that more in the events webinar, but just be aware there's the processing fee and a $1 fee per paid ticket. Free tickets are free. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. At this time, donations can be done without a login. Events cannot be. So they'll need to make a login. It's really quick. You can do it in the same flow that you're signing up for the event for. So say I want to go to this event, make your login. It'll take you to the next page, and it remembers your information. You can specify if you set up a registration form who your attendees are. It will know your relationships with people, so you can just pull, hey, this is my husband Bob. If you have a husband Bob. I don't have a husband Bob. I have a wife Taylor. So you they will have to make a login. It's really quick. It's really easy. There are is all the options for forgot username, forgot password, and all that. And this is a really great way to let them see their registrations, be able to pull up their tickets later, see their donations, update their credit cards, and if applicable, cancel their registration. So make that aware. There are some changes coming in later this year where that will not be a requirement. So just want to make sure we know about that. And that's events on pages. So pretty straightforward. Create your event, and it just turn on event pages, and it pushes. Membership is about the same way. So what you'll do is from your pages dashboard, you'll turn on membership. So all you have to do is turn on membership, and then from configurations, we will go down to membership levels, and create our memberships. And as long as we have them set to display on public site, they will go on our membership page. So let's edit a membership level. Let's use artist. I believe it's got some fun settings in it. And specifically, we're going to go to the pricing settings page. And for each pricing setting, we will determine whether or not it is available online. And so that will add it to our membership page. We'll talk about the directory in a minute. And all of our memberships will be here. So here we have artist in the 3 levels, the prices for artist. We can also have, the user can also view this as a list, though it defaults to the tiled view at this time. So, and they can join and they can gift. And then from their account, they can go to transactions, memberships, and renew. A nice trick for that is make a submenu item under membership called renew. That is an external URL that goes directly to that page. So if you need help with that, let me know. Basically, to find that page, log in as a user, go to transactions, memberships, and just copy that URL. It'll require them to log in when you direct them there, and it's going to be the same URL for all users. Nice, easy trick so that they actually renew instead of making new memberships. So, all right, that's membership. Just configure them, make sure, and they're going to by default be displayed on public site. So all you really have to do is turn on membership. And then that brings us to our penultimate topic, which is part of our penultimate topic, I suppose, of membership directory. This gives you the option of making a directory that can be seen by either everybody or members only that lists your members. So if you're a professionals organization where the professionals should be able to see each other to communicate, such as a mediation organization, where you have mediators and what have you, you can put your membership directory online so they can talk to each other, or make it so that it's public so that everyone can find a mediator who's a member with you, or dentist or eye doctor or whatever. I have a couple of organizations that work similarly, or an artist. So when you're configuring your membership, you can add the membership directory option and we can edit it, and we can say that it's only available to members. So that means non-members who are not logged in. Let me say that again. When you're logged in and you are a member, the system will track your membership status. You'll be able to see it. Otherwise, it is invisible. And we have a little bit of control on what's shown on this membership directory. So if we go back to our dashboard for pages, and we click on membership, so this one actually does do something, unlike events, we'll be able to specify is approval required for members. We'll ignore that for the time being. And the fields we list on the membership directory and on each page for a member. So what, oops, go back. So what is shown, oops, membership directory, let's pull that back up. So what's shown on the directory is what shows on this first page. And then when you actually click on a member and look at their details page, that's what's going to show here. And then we can manage their directory as well. And this is where that approval or comes into play. I have 47 members pending to be approved to go on the membership directory. I have 2 approved. So normally you're just going to need to manage the approval status, but I can also look at my approved and I can reject them and send them back to rejected. So Jane Smith here, reject, and she'll go back to the reject list where I can reapprove her, maybe if some condition is met. So maybe there's an additional fee or some other vetting process that has to do with that. So otherwise, if you turn off approval required, they will automatically, all members will go to the approved status. So that's the membership directory, which brings us to our ultimate topic. It is the last topic. So going back to our dashboard for pages, we are just about done. We have just a couple of configuration items. So configure notifications. This primarily, and then we'll talk about logs, which is kind of a bundled topic. This is in regards to what notices you will get when certain activities happen on your site. And the first one I recommend, the second one is neither here nor there. So on cart checkout, anytime there's a transaction, doesn't matter what the transaction is, you will get an email, whoever is listed here. So myself and Taylor will get a notice saying there's a transaction, here's the details. The user will also get a receipt. technically it's an invoice that says, here's the fact, here's what you bought, here's the money you paid, we're paid in full, confirmation, money's moved. If you go into acknowledgement settings for donations, there is a checkbox to indicate that, and also an acknowledgement an acknowledgement should be automatically generated based on all your settings, covered in a different webinar, and will be sent to the person immediately, and thus you don't have to queue it up and process it later. I always recommend on-cart checkout for at least somebody in your organization. Change of relationship basically means if a user changes their relationship with another user, another contact, you'll also get a notice. Not as important, but up to you. So that's our notices. And then lastly, the log. The log is a very useful tool. I use it when I'm giving support to you and helping you figure out, why is this person having trouble. It is the means by which you can see what people have been doing and what emails have been sent to them. So the activity log will track us a variety of things. Someone failed to log in. A payment failed. Sign up failed. Or sign up successful. So if somebody says, hey, I am trying to log in, it keeps failing, why is it failing? My actual first thing I check is, let's see, do we have a sign up successful? So let's filter by that. And then, get them all on one page is what I usually do. And then I'll do a Control F in my browser and I'll search for the person's name or email because we don't know what they might have used. So we see what did they actually use. Usually their email, because that's what they're going to use to log in. And I might find that, no, you've never actually signed up. You may also decide to skim your sign up fails for the same scenario. Maybe you notice that, hey, they failed to sign up. They never succeeded in signing up. So they have no login in which to do a password reset on or find user. And then alternatively, if I'm just looking at the logs, I like this. You might skim it on a relatively frequent basis, once a week, depending on your activity. You might notice a lot of failures for somebody with no success, and that might indicate, well, let's contact them. Let's see what's going on. What's the trouble they're having? Is potential the case that we just talked about, where they never actually made a login and they're being stubborn, or maybe they've forgotten their password, but they're not using the password reset link, so we can let them know about that, or a variety of other situations. These reasons here will give you a little bit of detail if there is a reason. So the reasons, you usually see those on fails. There we go. So here we had some sort of error message. So this demo system, we get things like that. Login failure. It's going to tell us the username and password were incorrect. Well, that's pretty straightforward. So that can give us a little bit of insight. So recommend checking these out regularly. Keep an eye out for people having trouble so you can help support them. This is what I use when you come to me to look for trouble. From there, I also have the email log, so we get to see what emails have been sent forth. So if someone says, hey, I signed up for something on the 20th, well, I say, well, I have no record that an email or a transaction in the log happened. So but I do have maybe, for example, a fail payment or something like that. So you never got an email because nothing was sent out because there was a failed payment. The credit card was declined. So kind of things you can check out, and I can see the details on these emails. So that's everything I have. So that's Public Pages. If you have any more questions, feel free to email support@fundly.com. If you are interested in the WordPress plugins that I mentioned earlier, implementation@fundly.com, or you can also email support@fundly.com for pages, widget, or plugins, and we can direct you to the right people as needed.